All right. Good morning, and greetings, friends, and welcome to the Serving of Sales show. I am your host, Damian Johnson, and you are listening to the show on the IBGR network, the number one business growth radio network in the world. And I am really, really excited to be with you today because, look, last week I had such great fun with you. Last week we talked about selling styles, right? And so I really listen. If you missed last week's lesson, I would encourage you to go back and listen to it because we talked about selling with style and understanding that people have different behavioral tendencies, and understanding those different behavioral tendencies will allow you to adapt your sales approach. I use the analogy that we all need to learn how to love people the way that they need to be loved, not the way that we want to love them. In sales, we need to sell people the way that they need to be sold to, not the way that we are comfortable with selling. But today we are talking about no smoking allowed. No smoking allowed. Overcoming objections. Now, why do I say no smoking allowed? Well, the simple truth is that it is highly, highly improbable. Hear me very clearly. It is highly improbable that you will achieve your full sales potential if you don't learn how to handle and overcome objections. And in order to do that, you must first understand what an objection really is. So let's take a moment and let's jump in and break it right down. So a sales objection are issues that the prospect communicates to you as the reasons why they cannot move forward and buy your product or your service. Okay. Now, objections are not always a hard no, right? And they're not always a rejection. You see, here's the thing. If you mistake an objection for a rejection, then you know what happens? You're likely to become defensive. You put your guards up, right? You're starting to run for the hills. You're bracing yourself for a fight. And you just 9 times out of 10, you will put yourself in a posture where you will break rapport. And we know that number one rules in selling is that you have to maintain rapport, right? And so this is really important because a lot of sales professionals and business owners, they really, listen, they really get it all wrong, right? They view objections all wrong. Because here's the thing. Objections are really nothing more than a smokescreen for uncertainty. You gotta love that, right? So the objections, hear me very clearly, they are a smoke screen for uncertainty. Whenever you get an objection, it really is a way of the customer or the prospective customer expressing to you that they're not a 10 out of 10. They've got some uncertainty. They've got some unanswered questions, and really what it does is that if you understand it this way, it helps you to keep the right posture, maintain conversation, and as long as you have the ability to talk with them, you can always move them to the closing if they are in fact closable. You see, what happens is that when a potential client feels uncertainty about you, you know what they do? Or it might not even just be about you. They might like you, but even if they have uncertainty about your product or your service, maybe it even is about your company, right? You know what they do? They give you an objection. That's what happens when they have uncertainty. But as long as you understand that it is just a smoke screen, objections are smoke screens for uncertainty. So when you understand that, here's what you can do. You can just relax, put your guards down. No need to feel defensive because objections, what they can sometimes represent is an opportunity to clarify, to bring understanding, share additional information, add social proof that builds certainty in the mind of your buyer. So this is an opportunity to identify and deal with any misconceptions about your product or your service, and ultimately increase confidence in the prospective client and close the sale. So that's why we say No smoking allowed, right? We're not accepting smoke screens. We're seeing past the smoke screen. Your goal as a sales professional and as a business owner is to slowly walk through that smoke screen. So don't allow the smoke screen to throw you off, right? No smoking allowed here, not in this camp. So when you see the objections as a smoke screen, then you can actually do your job as a sales professional and as a business owner. And what is that job? What is the job I'm talking about? Because here's your job. At the highest level, sales is about the transfer of emotion, and the primary emotion is certainty. And so you want to transfer certainty into the mind of your clients, right? And look, I've been in sales for many years, and I have experienced objection after objection after objection. And I can think of a time where I was working in the mortgage business, and the customer just kept throwing up objections, kept showing up. I mean, it's like if once I overcame one thing, then here was another. First, I need to talk to my husband, then the rate's too high, or then the documents aren't in place, or the process is too long. And it was objection after objection after objection. And really, what I did was I just continued to acknowledge it, deal with it, empathize, get on her side. And eventually I got to the root of the issue. And the issue was that they were dealing with a sick kid. The issue was that they had a kid at home that had a pretty terrifying diagnosis, right? And all of that was leading her to have anxiety, to be unsure of herself, and because of that, and she understood that it is a bad idea to make a financial decision that is important. When you are in the midst of an emotionally charged time, whether that's positively or negatively, she was afraid to commit. She was reluctant to commit, right? But when I was able to understand what the real issue was, not buying into the smoke screens that she was throwing my way, not getting thrown off, then I was able to get to the root and deal with it at the level to give her the certainty that the decision she was making to move forward was the right decision. Okay, so here is the why that this is important. This is important because it's not a matter of if you're going to get objections. In sales, you will get objections, right? And there is nothing more dangerous than to letting a sales objection go unaddressed until the final stages. Like if you are waiting until you make your final pitch to overcome an objection, let me tell you, you're going to be a little bit tardy to the party, okay? And you don't want to be tardy to this kind of party, because when you're tardy to the party, you don't make money. You don't sell. You don't serve people with sales. So, because here's the thing, the longer a buyer holds an opinion, I mean, think about it in your own life, right? Don't just listen to me. I mean, this is not theory. This is human behavior we're talking about. The longer a person holds an opinion, the stronger that opinion usually is. And the harder you as a sales professional and you as a business owner will have to fight to combat that opinion. So with this in mind, you've got to roll out the welcome mat for objections, not avoid them, not be intimidated. They're coming, right? So since you know the guests are coming to your house, you want to go ahead and get prepared and make them welcome. So you want to welcome objections. So the approach that you really want to take is a proactive approach, so that as you're entering into your discovery process, that you are looking to identify the objections, right? Now, here's the thing. You can do this really just by periodically asking questions, right? Asking questions and listening. So that might look like, let me give you some examples. So that could be like, well, Mr. Jones, do you have any concern around X, Y, and Z around this product or service? Here's another one. Mr. Jones, are there any obstacles that would keep you from buying? Right, that's a good one to ask, right? So it gets you the objections early on, so you know what you're dealing with. So here's one that I love to use. How confident, Mrs. Smith, do you feel like you would see success from using this product or this service? And if so, why? And get them to talk. Another way to uncover objections is I love the scale. So Mrs. Smith, on a scale from 1 to 10, where 10 is a perfect fit for you and 1 is not at all a fit for you, how would you rate our product or service in terms of its suitability for you? Right now, listen, if they're anything less than a 10, you know there's an objection there. So obviously you want to follow up and find out why they are where they are about that. Okay. And so another thing is that if you see your customer looking a little concerned, usually you can tell it by the tone of their voice. If you're listening, then you can also just deal with it, right? Deal with it head on. You can say, Mr. Smith or Mrs. Smith, Mrs. Jones, whatever. You seem a little worried. Tell me what you're thinking. Tell me what your concerns are. Just put it on the table, right? Because at the end of the day, what you got to understand in that in sales, you absolutely cannot run from objections. They are coming, so you got to get ready for them. In fact, go ahead and invite them. And because at the end of the day, listen, Linda. If you give up, if you were to give up after every sales objection, your pipeline is going to die a slow and painful death. As a sales professional, it's your job to understand what's going on in your prospects' minds, and especially when you hear them object, so that you can begin to handle those objections. Now, when we come back, I'm going to take a short break right now, but when we come back, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through a process of handling objections. So yes, there is a process, right? There's a process to handling objections. And so I want to talk about that when we come back from break, but just understand that the longer you are selling a particular product or services, the more you can get familiar with the type of objections that are coming. And then, learning how to overcome objections is what makes you good at sales. So we're going to take a short break. When we'll be back, we'll dig a little bit deeper. You're listening to the Serving Up Sales Show with your host, Damian Johnson. All right. So that is the first segment of the episode. So for friends out there that are watching live on Facebook, thank you for joining me. And for those of you that are watching live on YouTube, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm switching in between this broadcasting platform and the radio show. But if you leave me a comment, I'll be able to see it and I will address it live on the show. So just know that I'm glad that you're here. And I hope you're going to get value, because my desire in doing the show is to serve you. So if you're out there as an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, a business owner, look, you are in the business of sales, my friends. And so I really think that I can help you level up more sales if you are willing to tune in on a regular basis, right? Because I've been doing this for over 20 years. Okay. All right, so there we go. We're going to be jumping back in just a second here. So I'll tell you what, if you have questions about sales, jump in the chat and post those questions in the chat, because I'd really love to know what questions you have and what you're thinking about, and where you are as it relates to your sales journey. And talk to me about some of the objections that you have struggled to overcome, because if you'll interact with me here, then I can easily help you level up, and I'll address those objections in the discussion. So I love doing this show. I just love sales because I think that this is one of the most integrous things that you can do. Now, some of you might have hangups with sales. Maybe you've had a bad sales professional interact with you. Maybe somebody tried to hard sell you, so you've got this negative perception. I don't want to be a used car sales. I hate sales. Look, sales is what makes the world go round. Nothing happens until we sell something, right? That's what makes business go. And so if you are working towards building a business or generating income, then you got to get comfortable with, you got to release those hangups. So you see me looking over to the side here because I've got another screen and I'm watching the timeline on the IBGR radio station because in about 30 seconds, I have to go live again. So anyway, so today's topic is no smoking allowed. And we're talking about overcoming objections. And so because all objections is a smoke screen. So I am going to go back to the show and we'll kick off segment number 2. So thanks for joining me. I'm glad that you're here. Awesome. There we go. So let's go here. All right, friends, we are back. And so this is segment number 2. You're listening to the IBGR network. Listen, this is the IBGR is the number one business growth radio in the world. And we've got an app. It's IBGR.app. Look it up on the App Store or the Google Play Store. Download it and let it play as background music for you as we help you grow while you build your business and earn income. All right. So listen, and by the way, my social media handle on Facebook is I am Damian Johnson. I'd love to have you connect with me. I'd love for you to go there and post comments. Tell me what your objections are because I want to engage with you and I want to interact with you. Now, in the last segment, I kind of laid some foundation for why you need to get good at overcoming objections. Now, here is the what, okay? The what is that, and by the way, we're going to cover specific objections in just a minute. But first, I want to talk to you about the process. And generally speaking, there is, in fact, a process for overcoming objections. And if you want to get good, the bottom line is that you're going to need to practice it so that even if you're caught off guard, you've got a better chance of overcoming the objection, no matter what it is. And so I know that when I share this process with you, it is going to help you. But you got to understand that if you're going to be good at sales, this process that I'm going to show you right now needs to be where it's ingrained into your subconscious mind and it becomes the default way that you deal with objections, no matter what the objections are. It could be your kids resisting to eating vegetables. Listen, I deal with that every single day. I've got 2 little ones, actually 3 little ones at home, right? But 2 that can eat vegetables. So generally speaking, if you do the research, you might find that this some places will say it's a 4-step, some will say a 5-step process, but I like to call it lurk, right? This lurk, right? Except that it's lurk with a C at the end and not a K. Okay, so let me give you it's an acronym, and so it is the L stands for listen, the U stands for understand, the R stands for respond, and the C stands for confirm. So you're going to lurk. That's how you handle objections. So listen, understand, respond, and confirm. So let's talk about what I mean when I say listen. Okay, my friends, when you are confronted with an objection, the first requirement, hear me very clearly, the first requirement is to listen to the objection. As your prospect is sharing their concerns with you, make sure that you are engaged with and using active listening skills. So take in what they're saying, listen to what they're saying, because you know what? This actually demonstrates to your customer that you're interested in their concern. You care about what they have to say, right? So at the end of the day, don't just let your prospects spell out their objections, right? You're not just waiting for them to get it over with so that you can jump in. Actually listen. Listen to understand. Don't just listen to respond. Because people, can't you tell when someone is listening to you just to be able to jump in with their response? And when that happens to you, don't you feel some kind of way? I know I do. And so that's what you don't want to communicate to your customer. So the key here is to really, really is to listen while your prospect discloses their objections, right? And very important that you avoid interrupting them. Don't cut them off while they're speaking. Give them the space to voice their concerns and to share their objections freely, share their concerns freely. Don't jump in, right? Don't jump in with an answer. You want to make sure that you give them a chance to communicate out, right? To share all of their concerns. So give them time and space to speak. And in the process of doing that, it will help them feel like you're genuinely looking to help them. And at the end of the day, that builds rapport, right? It'll help them to feel like you actually have their best interests at heart. And you should. And if you do have their best interests at heart, then you'll truly listen to what they're saying, right? And in the process of doing that, the byproduct of that is that it increases your chances of closing the deal once you've handled your objection. So chances are that you'll be able to anticipate the objections before they even occur. And I'll talk to you about some of the common objections in the next segment. But for now, I just want you to understand that the first step in the process of handling objections is to listen. Now, step number 2 is to understand. All right, so you've heard your prospect out. So once your prospect has stated their objections, the next step is for you to understand and acknowledge them. Acknowledge their concerns. So this is where you now begin to demonstrate what you did in step 1, that you've actively been listening. So it could be something as simple as acknowledging them could be a head nod. It could be you giving them cues along the way, verbal cues like I see, I hear you, please continue. So that lets them know that you are with them, that you're tuning in. Another way to do it, this is actually one of my favorite techniques, is to restate the issue, because repeating back what you heard from them, man, that is going to do a couple of things. Number one, it ensures that you are understanding them correctly. So not only does restating their concerns help you clarify their points, but it will also help them to feel like you really, really heard them. And again, the goal is to build trust, because trust builds certainty, right? Now, here's the other thing that I love about this step 2 of understanding. What I have discovered in my journey is that a sincere acknowledgement really can circumvent a conversation from going left. It can avoid an argument, and it can actually have a calming effect. Sometimes your customers, when you're getting objection, it's a smokescreen, but they just want to know that they're being heard. Sometimes they just need to kind of vent. And if you're getting defensive or you're cutting them off and you're not letting them speak, you ruin your opportunity to allow them to feel heard and to get it out of them. Because at the end of the day, here's what I think. I really think that as human beings, we are complex, and we don't always exactly say what we mean. And even when we try to say what we mean, sometimes our words just might get misinterpreted. I mean, think about it. Do you always say what you mean? No. Sometimes you say one thing, but you're thinking another. So that's why it's important that you really take the time to paraphrase your customers' concerns, right? To demonstrate that you understand, or to demonstrate that you did not fully understand. I think it's a gift when you restate a customer's objections and you get it wrong. Maybe sometimes you might want to intentionally try getting it wrong, because number one, it lets them know that you are listening, and it gives them an opportunity to correct you. And in the process of correcting you, many times they'll reveal more information that you can ultimately use to address their concerns, right? So here's an example of what this might sound like. It might sound like, Mr. Jones, just to be clear that we're on the same page, you're concerned that our onboarding costs are too high, so it'll take too long and cost too much for you to see the benefits of our product. Is that right? See, we're clarifying there. Where I'm repeating what I'm hearing from them and clarifying, and then give him an opportunity. Notice how I ended with an open-ended question. Give him an opportunity to kind of bring greater clarity, right? So what I've discovered is that sometimes, there could be underlying objections that the prospect hasn't voiced, or they may have just alluded to. And so when you're asking open-ended questions, it'll help you to dig up all the objections before you're in a position to respond. Now, step number 3, that's number 2. So remember, step 1 is listen. Step 2 is understand. Step 3 is to respond. So this third step is to respond by what? By exploring their underlying concerns, right? What's underneath the objection? This is the time where you now begin to explore. Now, remember, you can't explore unless you understand what your customer meant by what they said. So after you have confirmed that you understand where they're coming from, you continue to build trust not only by empathizing, but you also want to validate their point of view. Now, remember, when you're validating their point of view, you actually have to do it, or you should be able to do it without talking down on your own product or even, elevating a competitor. You just want to make sure that you are letting them know that you've heard them, right? And so here what you're doing is you're making sure that you're understanding the real reason and you're responding accordingly, right? So So for example, your customer might have given you, let's say they've given you a price objection, but maybe the real reason they don't want to do business with you is because they might have talked to a competitor sales guy and they liked that person. They kind of felt like they wanted to do business with that person, but now they're coming to you and they're giving you all these objections. They're saying your price is too high. But if you don't take time to explore and ask questions, you never get to the root of what their real issue is. And here's what I know: it is always the objection that you did not get, the objection that you did not uncover, that kills your deal. And so you want to make sure that you're exploring and you are asking the appropriate questions. So sometimes, they'll give you a price as a smoke screen, but once you know what the objection is, then you can respond. So here's the thing: you actually do have to respond to the objection, right? Now, whether or not it seems like a serious issue to you doesn't really matter, my friend. It's all about what's happening in the mind of the buyer. So you got to respond in a way that acknowledges that their concerns are valid, right? So because if you're not taking the objection seriously, or you're just trying to steamroll them into a contract or into an agreement, pretty unlikely that you're going to close the deal. So you want to make sure that you're responding to the objection in a very straightforward manner. You have to handle it. Don't be afraid of it, right? You should be expecting it, right? And so you want to make sure that if it's something that you can handle, you handle it. Otherwise, if you don't have the authority to handle it yourself, then you go ahead and punt and go and explain that you'll follow up. You're gonna have to run it up the flagpole. So you want to make sure that you are dealing with the issue head on, but you got to respond by first affirming where they are, that you understand where they are, and then you move forward. Now, the final step is in this 4-step process. Matter of fact, when we come back, by the time when we come back, I'll share with you this last step in the 4-step process. Hang out there with me. You're listening to the Serving Up Sales Show with Damian Johnson. All right, so friends, so it's interesting, right? Because when you're doing radio, you kind of have to watch the time, because there are times when you have to go on break so that the station has an opportunity to run commercials. And so I got so caught up in what I was saying that I wasn't looking at the clock, and then I realized, oh, I'm running out of time. So step 4 I'll cover when I get back to the show. But if you've got questions, I wanna hear them. So oh yeah. Odeyemi, I see you, my friend. Good to see you out there. Thank you for bringing some comments, my friend. I believe you. I think you're in Nigeria, if I'm not mistaken, right? So I'm glad that you're here and you're taking notes, my friend. So good to see you. Anyway, so I've got another couple of minutes here, about another minute and 30 seconds before I go back live on the show. So if you've got questions or comments, please put them in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. And if you know other people that are out there trying to do good business and they're in a sales role, then share the broadcast with them. Facebook is gonna disable the watch party feature, so you have an opportunity right now to share a watch party. And so please do that. Share it out. I do the show every Wednesday at 11 o'clock, and I'd love to have you. So anyway, let's see here. My sound engineer Donna is messaging me, so let me just message her back. So I'm just letting Donna know that I am on Facebook Live as well, so that she understands that the reason I'm not typing in the Slack channel is that I'm online. But anyway, so we're getting ready to go back in a minute. But what questions do you have, friends? Like, where are you struggling when it comes to sales? What are the challenges that you are facing? Please, you can message me. If you're a friend of mine on Facebook, then you can send me a message. If you maybe are not friends with me, but you like what I'm teaching and it's serving you, then I would encourage you to send me a message at I am Damian Johnson, right? So that's my Facebook. My business page is I am Damian Johnson. And if you missed last week's episode on IBGR on selling with style, you want to go back and get that lesson. That was a killer lesson, and you need that lesson to be successful. So you need to understand buying styles. All right, so we're getting ready to go back. I'm down to my last 10 seconds. So you see me watching the clocks. You'll see me glance here from time to time. All right, so we're gonna go back right now. All right, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, friends, we are back, and this is again the Serving Up Sales Show. I'm your host, Damian Johnson, just hanging out and having fun with you today on the #1 business growth radio in the world, the IBGR network. And friends, we want you to engage with us. And so pick up the app, log on from your computer, and listen in because we've got all kinds of stuff that we're doing here. We're all about business owners' success. We want to see you be successful. Now, in the last segment, I almost ran out of time, but we were talking about the 4-step process to overcoming objections. And so I talked about listen, understand, confirm, and this last step, listen, understand, respond, and then I didn't get to cover confirm. So let's cover that really quickly right now. So after you've gotten the objection, you're listening to them, you're listening for understanding, you're understanding what you're saying, you are now responding, but now you got to get to the confirmation. Because remember, sales is not about just having a nice conversation. Sales is about closing the deal and serving your customer. So what you want to do in this last step of confirming, you want to reiterate that the objection that you're facing, that they're giving you, that if you're able to overcome it, the prospect will be happy to move forward. Because at the end of the day, your goal is to close the sale, right? And so you've gotten the objection, you've listened, you've understood, you've responded, and now you want to confirm that if you're able to overcome the objection, that they will move forward and do the deal. Remember, it's only once, and not before, not sooner. It's only once you have a complete understanding of the customer's objection that you can offer a response in the form of some kind of a recommendation or an alternative or a solution or a next step designed to address the customer's concern and close the transaction, right? And here's the thing, objection handling doesn't have to be painful, right? It should be viewed as an opportunity to help your customer and to grow your relationship with them. Now, here's the thing. All of that being said, the reason why this confirmation phase is really important in the objection is because there is no point in taking the time and the effort and the energy to overcome an objection if it still is not going to move you any closer to securing the business. Remember, some prospects are tire kickers, right? They are time robbers. They are here to just extract your time, extract your information with no intention to buy, right? And if that's the case, if you can determine that, then what you got to understand is that what you're getting is not really an objection. What you're getting is a brush off, right? And so let me make this more practical. Say, for example, they don't have the budget. Then they're not even qualified, because what is a prospect? A prospect or a potential client is someone that has a need or a desire for what you want, your product or your service, and the capacity to pay for it. Those two things must be present for you to consider them a qualified prospect or a potential client, right? Now, another thing that you might see is that maybe they lack the authority to make a decision. Or maybe they're not showing any signs of taking your presentation to someone higher up the chain of command to be able to make a decision. If you're starting to spot those things, then this is a time robber and you're wasting your time. And so what I would encourage you to do is to politely exit stage left. Get off the phone or end that conversation, because at the end of the day, if they're not going to do business, you need to go talk with someone, connect with someone that is willing to do business. So be careful of the time robbers. Now, okay, so I want to change gears now. Here's the good news. So, I'm talking about no smoking allowed, overcoming objections. Here is the good news. The good news is this: no matter what you're selling, sales objections almost always can fall into one of 6 categories. And because they fall into a couple of really specific categories, that means that you can prepare yourself to deal with them, right? So let me give you 6 categories of sales objections that I think it doesn't really matter what your industry is. You're probably encountering a sales objection that will fall under these six umbrellas. Number one, which is most often you're going to see, you're going to get the price objections, because no matter how low it is, it's always too high. That's how buyers think a lot of times. A second one is the competitor, the relationship, right? They're in order to do business with you, they maybe have to cease doing business with someone else. And so there's their conflict, that rub there. So you're having to deal with the comparisons with the competitor or the other relationship, right? So number three is the time and resource category, right? So the time is not the time and the resources and the interplay between those two. Sometimes you'll get objections there depending on your product or your service. And then number four is the timing objections. It's just not the right time. How many times have you heard that? You know how many times people have told me that it wasn't the right time? It's never a perfect time to do anything. You pretty much have to make a decision and back it with action. If you're waiting for the stars to align, well, good luck. You're probably not making a decision, right? So the timing objection is one that we should all be prepared for as sales pros, right? And then you've got the product value. So they're trying to understand the value piece. Is there enough value here? And then you've got the one where you're dealing with your chronic procrastinator. And so this is the dragging your feet. This is the long maybe. Listen, all day, every day, and twice on Sundays, I'll take a quick no over a long maybe, because long maybes are painful. Now, last week I talked about different selling styles, and there are people that are processors. They need time to mull things over. But generally speaking, I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about the objection that you're getting, which is the way it's showing up is that they're dragging their feet on making a decision. Okay, so for the rest of the show, what I want to do now is now that you understand the categories of sales objections, I want to give you, I don't know if we'll get through all of them. My intent is to give you 10 common sales objections that you are likely to face. And you're probably going to be laughing as I uncover these, because you'll probably be nodding your head along because you've experienced that in your own practice, right? And so let's listen. So here are some common sales objections. Number one, now is not a good time. Number two, it's too expensive. How many times have you heard that? Number three, I'm already doing business. I have another provider. I'm already in another contract. Number four, boy, have I heard this one. You've probably heard it too. Just send me the information. Send me an email. You just give me the information. I'll look it over and get back to you. Okay. You know what I'm talking about. I know you're listening to me. You know exactly what I'm saying. Here's about number five. I don't have the time to deal with this right now. I don't have the time, right? Or I don't have the time to talk with you right now after you've spent time building a relationship. Number six is I need to run this past my boss, or I need to talk with my wife, right? How many times have you gotten that as an objection? Now remember, I'm not saying that the objection is not valid, right? I'm saying it's a smokescreen for uncertainty, right? Another one is that this other product is cheaper. Number 8 is you don't offer this particular feature. So they're hung up on the feature that they're getting, right? And they're not focusing on the benefit. Number 9 is I need to get a few more quotes. So this is your person that's saying, look, I got to shop around, right? And we know that if they do that, there's a good chance that you're never going to see them again, right? So you got to deal with that objection head on. Or and I've encountered this for other companies, for companies I've worked for in the past. Number 10 is you have a bad review. And guess what? If you've been with a company that's been around for any length of time, doing any meaningful business, chances are they're going to have a bad review, because most companies don't get it right 100% of the time, right? And so there will be some bad reviews out there that'll happen, and you have to be able to deal with it. So what we're going to do for the rest of our time today is I'm going to try to walk through each of these objections, give you some examples, and kind of talk with you a little bit about how you can handle that objection. Okay, so let's start with number 1. Number one is now is not a good time. Damien, it's not a good time. I really want to do this, Damien, but the time is it's just not a good time for me right now. Okay, I get it, Mr. Jones. Timing is a common objection for several reasons, right? In fact, I think there are actually two objections hiding in there, right? Number one is that they're saying I don't personally have the time to handle this, and number two could be that they're saying now is not really a good time to buy. But either way, you've got to investigate that, right? Because you can't just let it stop there. What you don't know what it really means. You have to investigate further if you want to move forward. And so here's how you handle that. If the prospect thinks that now's not a good time to buy, then here's what I would ask you to consider before moving forward. Number one is to make sure that you're dealing with someone that is qualified, right? Remember, they have the capacity to pay, right? So don't waste your time. Number two, what you don't want to do is to go into desperate mode, right? You don't, because and when you go into desperation mode because of that, you have a tendency to oversell and literally talk yourself out of the deal, right? And so what you want to do is maybe try a few different objection techniques for the timing objection. So let me give you a couple of ways that you might actually want to handle this, right? So you might say, well, Mr. Jones, if money and resources were no object, would you be willing to start with our product today? Right? So that's one way of dealing with it, right? Because if your prospect says no, then maybe they don't think your product is valuable. Then you can find out why. If your prospect says yes, you can dig deeper. Another way to handle this is to say, well, Mr. Jones, help me understand what's holding you back. By getting your prospect to talk through their reasoning, you're going to be in a better position to address their hesitation. This one might seem a little bit combative, but you might want to try it sometime. Say, well, Mr. Jones, I get that now's not a good time, but when would be a good time to buy? If they don't answer, it might mean that it's something different than just their circumstances. Okay, so I want to pause there. That's the first one. I don't have enough time. It's not the right time. When we come back, I'm going to try to get through the other 10 for you. You're listening to the Serving Up Sales Show with Damian Johnson. We'll be back after a few minutes. All right. So for those of you that are out there, drop me a comment to let me know where you are watching from. I'd love to know where you're watching from. And if you have a question, I'd love to hear it. So you can post in the comment because I am toggling back and forth as I'm doing the show. I'm going from the radio to the comments here, and I want to see. My friend Adeyemi says that thank you for over delivering value on the show. It is my pleasure. I really feel like sales is a gift zone for me. I love it, and I want other people to learn to love it too, Yemi. So thanks for joining me. I love that you're putting comments in the chat. Because maybe people who are watching later, they'll be able to see this and they'll be able to get your cliff notes. So I actually don't think whenever I do the show, and some of you out there, you might want to do a show for yourself, right? So by the way, we're on intermission, so I'll be going back in a couple of minutes. But one of the things that you might want to think about too is that I always over prepare. So when I'm doing a show, I always genuinely come with more content than I can deliver, but it's because I want to have flexibility in shifting gears as thoughts come into my awareness as I'm doing the show. I want to be able to give more. I want to give as much as I have because I do this really because I want to help people. And so if your goal is to connect, and if your goal is to move the needle with sales, then just know this. I can help you, and I want to help you. And so, reach out to me. My Facebook and Instagram handles are I am Damian Johnson, and so would love to connect with you to see how I can help you serve up more sales, because I think sales is one of the best professions for anyone. And so I see my friend Yemi is listening from Nigeria. My man. All right. And Lisa Hollis. Hey, Lisa, good morning to you. Good late morning. So glad that you're here and that you're tuning in. I'm grateful for you. And so I'd encourage you all to share the broadcast. So I'm counting down. I'm watching the clock. So every time you guys see me look to my right, probably your left, as I'm looking at the clock on the radio station, because I'm going back live. I don't think I'm going to get through the other 9 objections, but that's okay. Whatever I get through today, I think will help people. So we're down to 30 seconds to go live. If you have a question, I want to hear it from you. So drop your question in the chat so I can come back and I can acknowledge it for you, okay? But we're about to land the plane, and I'm going to walk through some strategies and some common objections and strategies for handling. All right, so we're down to our last 10 seconds now. So here we go. All right, 5 seconds. All right, friends, this is the Serving Up Sales Show. I'm your host, Damian Johnson, and I love sales, and I want to see you serve people at the highest level by selling them. You can't help people unless you sell them something, right? So sales should not be something that you should fear. You should go into it. I want you to connect with me. I want to hear from you. As you're listening out there, wherever you're listening from, find me on Facebook. Go to my business page. I am Damian Johnson. So just type I am Damian Johnson on Facebook, on Instagram. If you're on YouTube, that's where you can find me. I want to hear from you. So leave me a comment. Tell me what your pain points, which objections do you get most, and how do you handle them, and what are you struggling with? Because that better informs me so that I can create more content to serve you. Okay, so here's where we are in the show. We are covering, what I think are some of the most common objections that you will get as in the world of sales, right? And now I'm probably not going to cover all of this today. I've got lots to give you and not enough time to give it to you in. But we just talked about the now is not a good time objection. That is a very, very common one. How about this one, my friends? How about the price objection? It's too expensive. How many times have you heard people say that it's too expensive? The thing to understand about the price objection is that it is actually not as straightforward as it really sounds. Now, I'm not negating the fact that there could truly be a lack of cash. But when you get this objection, many times it could just be a brush off, or the prospect might not think that your product is good enough, is of good enough or meaningful enough value to justify the cost. And so when they feel that, then they'll say, it's too expensive, right? I really think that I like to keep things simple because I'm a simple kind of guy. I generally think that people either they either have the cash or they're motivated to get it, right? So I think of buyers as they have the money, or if they don't have the money, they have the motivation to go get it. Because I have had people that have bought products and services from me, not because they had the money, but because I was able to build a value case so strong, I was able to communicate such certainty to them that they were motivated to go and find the resources to buy the product or services. So I think that when you're doing your job correctly, you don't just succumb and give in and tuck your tail in between your legs when you get the price objection. So here is how you handle it. So again, remember, all of what I'm teaching today and what I'm sharing is in the LURK framework. So listen, understand, respond, and confirm. So again, the first thing you got to do is you want to work to overcome the real reasons behind the objection. So one strategy I like to use here is to pause for several seconds after the prospect has objected to price. Okay. Typically, what you'll discover is that most people are not comfortable with silence. See how that felt awkward? See that awkward silence? Somebody is going to be motivated to fill in that silence, right? And so oftentimes when you are silent, they because of that awkward silence, they'll usually want to volunteer more information, but they'll do it unprompted. And so once they finish talking, again, you want to understand, right? So you want to ask a few more questions to zero in on what the objection really is. Because remember, objections are smoke screens, right? So try to find out what the prospect thinks, what makes the prospect think your product or service is more expensive or too expensive, right? And what they're comparing it to. So if they're saying it's too expensive, one of the responses I like to do, and you have to be careful about how you do it, Mrs. Jones, I hear you and I appreciate that you're saying that. Help me understand what you're comparing that to. right? So you'll often find that the issue is actually more a vague feeling than anything concrete. So when they're telling you that the price is too high, they haven't necessarily done the research to say, based on where you're positioning in the market, this is why I think your price. No, they haven't done that. It's a feeling that they have, and that feeling is based on uncertainty. Remember, objections are smoke screens for uncertainty. So in this case, you might want to actually make sure that you are equipped with a few hard facts. That's why, as a professional, you got to know your stuff. You got to know your products and services and know where they fall in relation to others, right? And because if you have some hard facts, then you can use those to help put your customer's mind at ease. If you feel that the prospect just needs a little reassurance, then one of the things that you can do is begin to put the price in context of how much it costs in relation to the ROI, the return on the investment. So really what you want to do is to help them understand opportunity cost, how much it would cost not to take advantage of this right now, right? So you want to make sure that you are framing it up not as a cost, but as an expect a return. So it's less about proving that the product is worth the price, which is where a lot of salespeople go wrong, but it's more about demonstrating the value. Remember, you always go back to the benefits. You always loop back to the value. Because here's the thing, once you build an airtight, logical conclusion in the mind of your customer, then they will begin to perceive your product or your service as crucial. And when that begins to happen, the price begins to matter less. Boy, I'm giving you some gold today. Are y'all taking notes? Are you listening to the words that are coming out of my mouth? I am dropping gold right now. Listen, please pay attention and share this broadcast because I want to connect with you. We've got about 5 minutes left before I've got to wrap up. So I'm going to try to jump to another objection. How about this one? I think we all get this one. Just send me the information. Yeah. Just send me your information, right? Or call me next quarter, call me next month, whatever, right? So I think those that interpret that in probably two ways. Yeah, two ways. It depends on where you are in the call or in the interaction when you get this, right? So here's the thing. If you hear this kind of dismissal early in the call, it probably is just a brush off, right? They're like, look, I don't want to talk to you, get off my phone, or I don't want to meet with you right now about this, right? So if you're getting this objection early, then I think you got to go back to the way that you're qualifying your prospects or qualifying your clients. There might be a breakdown there because you might just have someone that is unsuitable, meaning they're not even interested. So what's the point in talking to them? Now, if you get it later in the call, then the problem could actually stem from the prospect being too busy or this is a big or, not really understanding the benefit of your product. And this is when you get to do your job. Because if the latter is true, that they don't understand your product or your service, then you have to take another look at your presentation because you're not building the airtight logical conclusion that would give them certainty. If they don't understand what you're selling, then there's a mistake, there's a flaw somewhere in your process. And it's your job to make sure that they understand, because when a person lacks clarity, when a person is confused, they do not act. And so you've got to build an airtight, logical conclusion. And the way that you do that is you've got to listen, you've got to understand, you've got to respond from that understanding, and then confirm to them if you're able to overcome that you can continue moving forward. So understand that just send me the information 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 times out of 100, you're going to send to them, they're never going to open it, never going to look at it, right? So you've got to get past that. And if it's late in the game and they're saying, sending me the information, then there's an objection hiding in the bushes, and you need to go root out that objection. Okay, so we've covered that one. Now we've got about another 3 minutes left. So let's see which other one I want to speak about today. So let's talk about section for the people who want to comparison shop. Okay, I need to shop around. I need to make sure that this is the best deal, right? Now, This has got to be one of the most frustrating objections. And it's actually one of the most common ones at the same time, right? The reason why it's frustrating is because it actually it's like a blanket. The I need to get a few more quotes is like a blanket, and underneath that blanket can actually be many other objections. Sometimes people use it as a simple brush off, but the truth but and it could be true that they're actually shopping around, but most of the case I think that they're just saying I'm not convinced that this is the best deal for me or that your product or your service is the best solution that I need. So I think that the best way to overcome this objection is by you need to have a solid script to work around the situation, because if you've been in your industry any amount of time, you're getting this one, right? So if someone really believes that they need other quotes, which is a common approach to buying, you can't stop them from doing that, right? But what you can do is make sure that you understand them, you listen, you hear them out, and then I think you want to go right back to the benefits, right? And that's where having a sales script will do. And I love to use the feel, felt, found approach. Mr. Jones, I understand how you feel. I've had lots of customers that have come in and told me, after we've talked that they really want to shop around. But when we looked into it, here's what we found, that the many times, the best time to make a decision is when you have all of the information in front of you. And I've shared with you that you share with me that this, and this is what you're looking for. These are your pain points. Insert pain that the benefits that your product provides meets their needs. Now you can't force them to do the deal, but that is one good way that you could approach overcoming objections. Listen, I wish this might actually need to be a two-part, because I've got more objections I want to cover and go over with you. But that is unfortunately all the time that I have for you today. Friends, my name is Damian Johnson. It has been my esteemed pleasure to serve you on the Serving Up Sales show. I want to thank you for joining me. Share the if you're watching on Facebook, share the video. Tell your friends about IBGR. But we want to make sure that we're serving you. Next week I'll come back. I'll do a two-part on this so I can give you more. But enjoy your day, and remember, go out there and serve up sales. We'll see you next time. Bye for now. All right. So my friends, let's see here. I think my audio is doing something crazy. So for those of you watching on Facebook, I want to thank you for joining me today. And I appreciate you tuning in. Let me know what you think. Am I covering content that is helpful? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Ultimately, my goal is to serve you and to help sales professionals. I have many, many years of experience in sales, over 20 years, and I want to help you move the needle. And so let me know if it's serving you. Let me know what you would like to hear from me, because I'll build the content to serve you, because at the end of the day, I'm a servant at heart. So thanks for joining me today on the show. I wish you much success. Remember, sales is the noblest profession in the world, right? Because when done right, when done with integrity, ethics, and moral, you are helping people solve their problem and get to a future positive. You want to help them get to a future positive. So anyway, go out and be integrous and be confident with your sales. We'll see you back next week, Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time for the Serving Up Sales show. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.